All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We are here once again on another Saturday night. The Almost Mediocre Sports Guys, Anthony and Mike, back with you guys. Hope everybody's had a wonderful week. How's everything going, Mike? How was your week?
It was very good, sir. Very, very good. How are you
I'm
doing?
doing good. I'm doing good. Doing good. Excited to get into today's topics because what we are getting into. I know. Sorry, we didn't get to come in on Friday like we were hoping to do. We were going to do maybe like a special show where we start talking about the playoffs and stuff before they started. It is my fault. My daughter had a cheerleading thing going on, so sorry about that, everybody. But my kids come first, all the
That's
time,
right. Priorities
all
first,
the
family
time.
first, family first. We always talk about this, family first. But real quick, bud, before we jump into this, got to say what a great, great time to be a sports fan coming off the national championship where, I think TCU showed up. At least they were there. They didn't show up for the game, but props to Georgia for just showing how good they are. But what a great time for sports. You know, college football wrapping up, NFL playoffs getting started, basketball, college, NBA going strong, spring training around the corner. I mean, this is just like the best time for a sports fan. So,
I agree.
and we're gonna get into this playoff talk.
Yeah,
So
just like Mike
this is
said,
great.
guys. Look, this is what we're doing today. We are getting into our Super Bowl predictions. We are going to go straight through everything tonight, everybody. You're going to get predictions. Obviously, the first game has finished between the Niners and the Seahawks. 49ers did go ahead and run away with that game a little bit there. Mike, what did you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, San Francisco obviously came out. It's hard to say. Purdy was probably a little bit nervous, and that's understandable. First playoff game. And credit to Seattle. I really didn't expect much of a game. Seattle they did show up, as they say. I thought they played the 49ers straight up. But you go into halftime, adjustments are made. Shanahan is probably one of the best right now at making the adjustments, and that certainly showed in the second half. Top to bottom right now, and the Niners are literally just rounding into shape. The injuries are just about apparently over, so they should be in top form as they head into this next week. Potentially, could be against Minnesota. We don't know yet. Depends on the Giant game, but we'll see. Niners look great, but Seattle. First of all, with Denver's 5 pick and some additional picks next season or next, come draft time, looking like they're going to be in pretty good shape. So I would expect some big things from them in coming seasons. But Niners look like they're ready to make a run. I think they got the sights on Philly. So let's kind of see how it goes.
Yeah,
I think we both did take the 49ers to win this game. I actually thought
exactly.
the 10.5 was a good cover. I took the Niners to cover, and obviously they did. But I thought it was a good start to the playoffs.
No, definitely, and I know that we kind of talked about this, and my big thing, obviously, I figured they would win this game. I had them picked 31-17 is what I had the score pegged at,
And
obviously.
you don't remember my score by chance,
You
do
know,
you?
I
Did you write
don't.
my
I
score
did
down? I can't
not
remember.
write either one of your guys'
Okay.
scores down, unfortunately, when we were talking about that. But we had talked about obviously Purdy and what he's done with this team, which has been great. We always felt like he's managed a little bit more than he has, being able to just let it go. But today he showed out. What was it, over like 340 or something like that? 330 he had somewhere around there, and what, 3 touchdowns I believe is what it was. Today, I mean, the guy looked great, and that was the thing that I told you guys is I've been waiting for him to be that guy. That's the one that I you know
Yeah.
what I mean. I was like, hey, when do we get to see him kind of air it out? When do we get to see more of him? Um, Rather than just be that management, just being able to say, hey, I just need you to get me to this point, just get us to a win. We'll let the defense kind of sort it out. To be honest with you, I was surprised with Seahawks put up 23, 24 points. I'm surprised they put up that many points. Like we said, we've always been, big on that defense. So that was a little shocker to see, but San Francisco took care of business. I know, we were a little worried. Halftime it was 17-16. But like you said, you make adjustments, and that's exactly what they went and did is it made those adjustments that they needed to, and pretty much took care of business. So yeah, like I said, that's the first game that went through. But you know, we're gonna get through every single game. We're gonna go straight through all the way to the Super Bowl, and we will give our Super Bowl picks. Like I said, we've already went through the first one. Mike and I both had the Niners. So the next one we're going to talk about here a little bit is the game that's going on right now. So we kind of know, but we got Jacksonville against the LA Chargers. Mike, I believe you had the Chargers winning this game. Am I correct?
Yeah, I know right now as it's changed. I looked at the score just a few minutes ago. I think there were still 12 minutes left in the second quarter, and I know that the Chargers had the ball and were driving, but they're obviously up 17-0. But yeah, back to your point, we both did. Well, yeah, I did take the Chargers to win this game. I think Peterson's is a better coach. I'm not real big on where Los Angeles is at with their coaching setup. I would like to see them step away going forward. I mean, obviously, if they go to the Super Bowl and win, that's a different story. But what I've seen thus far hasn't impressed me. So I think that could be, and one, I think it may not show up in this game, but it could potentially show up if they do advance past, this first game here. But right now they're looking pretty solid. We both, I think, like what we're seeing. You know, it's tough. It was the toughest game of the first week's games for me to pick. Two closely matched teams. We know what Jacksonville did to the Chargers earlier this year. That was just an absolute beatdown.
Yeah.
But the Chargers are getting back healthy, also like the 49ers, and I think it's starting to show. Looks like from what I've seen thus far, they're playing pretty well on both sides of the ball. Um, if it continues as it's played out thus far, I would expect the Chargers to win in advance. But we'll see how it goes. But looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I went the other route. I did take Jacksonville to win this game, and I thought they'd pull it out. 27-24 is the score that I had picked for the game. But part of it for me was just the streak that Jacksonville's kind of coming in. They were hot coming into the playoffs. I figured they'd be able to possibly get through the Chargers. Chargers didn't. I know they didn't look great against Denver. Obviously, they didn't play all their starters the whole game. But even when they were in at the beginning of that game, they weren't moving the ball as well against us. The defense didn't look good. Denver was driving on them all game long. Obviously they lost the game too, so that was kind of big. But I just love what Trevor Lawrence has been doing with this team. I mean, he's the true leader in my opinion out there, and just I love seeing the way that he's progressed over this last year. I mean, he had so many problems last year with Urban Meyer and other things, just not having a full team around him, injuries, things like that. And now that they're at full strength, it's crazy to just see just how much better he has gotten from last year. You could tell he's been putting in the work to get better.
Yeah, and I like what I see out of his confidence. I know, obviously, you mentioned Urban Meyer, and we know the tragedy that turned into with him as I won't even say a head coach. It never manifested itself into him being the head coach of that football team. That was just a joke.
Yeah.
But those type of situations, particularly in a rookie season, can really just absolutely crush any confidence you may have in yourself or ever have in yourself. Like you mentioned, but I'm glad to see him bounce back. I think you did too, when he hooked up with Peterson. That would help turn things around. If it didn't, then it's probably worse than we thought. But he's responded well. I think they've got a good connection, player to, or coach to quarterback. And I've seen a few of the games this year. I like what I see. Obviously, there's some struggles tonight. I know for a fact one of the picks, the first pick wasn't necessarily Lawrence's fault. Tip ball, we know how that goes. That was probably a pass that should have been thrown. But hopefully, you learn as you go. And if they don't advance, it's a learning curve for the entire team, obviously with Trevor as well. But like what I see, Herbert continues to he just continues to elevate his game. Solid quarterback. I think a lot of him. I know you're still wanting to see a little bit more, and that's understandable too. But with the team essentially back to where they would like to be health-wise, kind of be interesting to see what they do, especially if they win tonight and they advance, obviously, and they'll take on Kansas City next week. If they win, that'll be on the road, so that's going to be a whole different ball game. It's like you always talk about, but divisional games, those are the toughest.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So we'll see how that goes. But right now, both teams, win or lose, I think there's progress being made. You've made it to the playoffs. Next step, obviously, is to get back and obviously go a step further. But that's for another season. But right now, I don't know if it's still 17-0, but obviously that's a little bit of a deficit for Jacksonville to come back from.
Yeah,
But we'll see. We'll see.
yeah, no, definitely, I agree. And like you said, yeah, I haven't hit that spot yet with Herbert. I mean, I think he's done great. Regular season wise, he puts up the numbers for sure. He's definitely over. Throws over 4,000. No problem every single year. He has his issues. I feel like just the IQ isn't there sometimes at the end of the games to win them. But also, we've talked about coaching. I don't know if that's just IQ on him, like if it's just a play call and he's just going through with whatever it is, and it's not really his call necessarily, to make that decision. I don't know how much leeway he has on audibling out of calls, making his own calls, whatever it may be. But I mean, if he has full control of the calls and he can make his own decisions, sometimes I feel like he just doesn't do it the right way, and that's what causes him to lose some of these games. Obviously, like I said, we brought in coaching about him too. He's not great in crucial situations, bad timeout calls sometimes, poor challenges, or poor play calling sometimes. Just from him. So, but yeah, no, definitely. I think I agree with you about it being one of the toughest games too to decide from. Both these teams are, in my opinion, kind of even. When you look at them, they're just about even in a way. So that's what made it just as tough to pick this game, and it had to be the toughest one, for me, definitely, like you said.
Yeah, and like we talked about too, but I mean, regardless of how these playoffs turn out at the end of the season, the league as a whole, NFC and AFC, you've got some young quarterbacks that are coming up, that look to keep the league solid at that position, and should be able to help the league carry forward. Once the Rodgers and the Brady step aside. So it looks like they're in good hands as far as the quarterbacks goes. So it's exciting to see. I think it's going to be a lot of fun over the next 10, 15, 12 years at least. It should be exciting, unless barring some serious injuries.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. So let's move on to the next game here, and the next one I have written down for us, Mike, is that Buffalo Miami game. Definitely, we just talked about division games, how they are tough to play, but I believe between both of us, we just don't see this one being as tough as some division games usually are.
Yeah, when looking at how the playoffs were formatted, by game, there were three that I looked at that, well, you could also actually say four, but Seattle was one of them. And by that I mean one that a lot has to happen for the underdogs to win in these games. We obviously know that Miami's just been devastated at quarterback, either through injury or, as I say with Tua, hopefully in a way it's common sense. I don't think he should be playing, even if he could play. I just think you let him sit for the rest of the season. Hopefully come back next year, be healthier, and be able to continue a career. I'm not even sure if that's been defined yet, if he'll be able to do that. But um, you know, and in our conversations, I'm not big on Bridgewater. Um, he had a good run with the Saints one year, backing up Breeze. He stepped in and he performed well. But even as a backup, I struggle with Teddy.
So is Teddy starting? Is that for sure, or was it
I don't.
Skylar
I'm not
Thompson?
gonna say. Yeah, I want to say he's not, but I didn't get final verification on that.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
I think they are
in
going
my
with the third
opinion too,
stringer.
regardless of who, my mine doesn't change either. I mean, I have Buffalo winning this game, and I had them at 34-13. I don't even think it's close. But I do agree with you on the Tua thing, though. I believe that he should not play too. I totally agree with that 100%. He's definitely got to think about his health first, no matter what, and whatever that means. Whether it just means to go ahead and sit out the rest of the season, you know, get his mind right, get everything, get back, into the weight room, kind of work out, just kind of get his mind off this, and then make a decision. Then so be it. But I totally agree he doesn't need to be in here. But with saying that too, even if he's playing, I still don't believe that Miami just has enough to beat these Buffalo Bills this year. I just don't.
No, but we saw that, when they went up there for I think was it a Monday night game and it was cold weather and Tua, I think that was his first game in some pretty severe cold.
Yeah,
And he actually played well.
he
I
did.
mean,
Yeah,
they
no,
as a
he
team
did.
played well. And I thought we didn't expect them to win. They obviously didn't, but they played well. But again, to your point, even if Tua did play, I know Buffalo's a 13.5 point favorite. And even if, possibly if Tua had played effectively, maybe they keep it under 13.5. I don't know. I wouldn't think so. Obviously, with him not playing, I just expect Buffalo to steamroll this game. I can't remember the exact score I gave with you and your dad, so whatever I predict now might be slightly different, but I could easily see Buffalo 31-14, maybe 31 or I don't know, 35-16. It's
Yeah,
gonna, they'll cover the spread. Um, there's a lot of motivation for Buffalo in this game. First playoff game at home, obviously with everything that happened, aside from player issues and recoveries, the city and all the weather conditions they've had to face this past season. It's just been it's been a lot for the city to deal with, and I know they need this right now just to vent. So I think this game is almost therapeutic for the players as much as it is the fans. So it should be fun, but I just absolutely expect Buffalo to steamroll these guys. I think Josh is ready to go. He'll still have some injuries, to I don't know how minor or major they are, whatever they may be, he's able to deal with it, and he should be able to deal with that all the way through to the point wherever they reach in the playoffs. But I don't see very much difficulty with them with this game.
I think those injuries kind of go out the window once playoff time comes. You know, I think there's some players like that. Definitely. I don't want to get too off topic with somebody like a Brett Favre or something like that. So that's just somebody that you didn't hear injury from him. Same thing with Josh. I get that same feeling with Josh Allen. If you hear he may have tweaked something or heard something, and you can't tell the next time he plays because he just goes out there and he gives it his all. And you see that from a lot of these quarterbacks nowadays. Not just Allen, but Burrow's the same way too, and even Mahomes. Mahomes doesn't really get hurt. He's so good at getting out of the pocket and making things happen that he you know stays away from getting hurt. But you could tell still a lot of work that these guys put in, and sometimes their bodies be hurting, but you can't tell from a lot of these great quarterbacks that are playing right now. You don't see it.
Yeah, and again, and to your point with Josh again, just touching on him real quick. And I touched on this, I think it was 2 videos ago when we were talking about our MVPs and that type of thing. Um, Josh is just that leader that you look for, in a team. He is that guy that you want back there if you need to go that 98 yards with a minute 35 left, you need a field goal, that type of situation. The guys respond to him. He's obviously well liked in the locker room from everything I've heard, and we both know about his competitiveness. So it just, he's ready to go. The team's ready to go. They're on a mission. We all know what happened last year. So if anybody's motivated, we know it's Buffalo.
Right?
So let's just see how that goes. So I don't think it'll be a great game. Like I mentioned briefly, there were a few games I thought were locks. This was one of them. The San Francisco game was another. We'll talk about the Giants in Minnesota. The other one I thought, and you'll be bringing that up too, with Baltimore and
Cincy.
no, Cincinnati. But this one here, I think, is it. I don't know. Josh may be able to set the fourth quarter. We'll see.
All right, so moving on now, we are going on to the Giants and Vikings game. Actually, this is one of
I want to really get your impressions on this one too, bud, because I know you really like the Giants a lot, and I'm just kind of looking to see what you feel will be the keys to this particular game with the Giants, because I know you're at least maybe you're not
yeah,
incredibly on the Giants, but you think that they're better than a lot of people give them
yeah,
credit
I
for.
do believe that, and I'm like I said, I'm not super high on it. Like I'm not sitting here saying that this team's bound for the Super Bowl this year or anything like that.
Oh yeah,
But I do like what they've done. I really like Brian Dable as their coach. I think he's done really, really well. He's one of those guys that should be mentioned as coach of the
yes
year,
sir.
in my opinion. Daniel Jones, and we've talked about this in other podcasts. We talked about it today too. I love watching these quarterbacks that want to get better, that learn, that take the time to get better and learn. And I believe Daniel Jones has done that. Um,
What do you think, bud? What do you think the ceiling is on Jones? I know you don't think he's reached it yet. How high do you think he's a Super Bowl quarterback?
Super Bowl quarterback, that's tough. I would say right now, if you had asked me just by watching him, no, he's not there
Yeah,
yet. Do I think he can be? Yes, but he's got to get some more help around him. Saquon was finally healthy pretty much for a whole season, which shows just how much that can help you a lot, especially for Daniel Jones. You know, he's not having to focus on just tons of throws. You know, you throw the ball a lot of times. You throw the ball, 35 to 40 times a game. You're going to throw picks eventually. They're going to catch on to
yeah,
it. So Saquon being healthy for the entire season is what I feel like really turned this team around because he was great for them. I am a Saquon Barkley fan. I do like Saquon a
oh,
lot.
I am
So
too. I am too.
I was happy to see him get back out there and have a great season. Um, but the other thing I feel like he just needs a little bit of help on that receiving core. I know he's got some young wide receivers, and they are playing well for him, um, this year. But can they keep that going? That's the other thing. Does it do they progress to the next year and the year after that? What do they do in the draft? The defense has actually stepped up better. They've had their falters here and there. Um, Towards the end of the season here a little bit, but I still think the defense is pretty good. Now, jumping to the other side of this though, with Cousins and stuff, I was big on Minnesota before the season started. I was the one that told you and my dad that I figured Minnesota this year would overthrow Green Bay for the North Division title. Um, I figured just the way Cousins and Jefferson match up together is just insane to watch. But sometimes, as we all know, Cousins just has his days where he just is not that guy. Um,
Yep.
Too many picks. Just he's just off. Completion percentage can be really bad. And it usually happens in big games. Well, you're in the playoffs now, so this is a big game. The defense for Minnesota is really, really down now too. I mean, that was one thing that Minnesota used to strive on is at least they'd have a very good to really good defense. Somewhere around there. They could hold their own. They're anywhere between a top 15 to top 10 defense. Most years, but this year's been bad. They're really really bad, and I feel like if Saquon can run the ball against them, it'll open up that play action and pass game for Daniel Jones, and I feel like they would be able to pull this game out. And I have them winning 23-20, and I do have them winning on a last second field goal. I think Cousins will throw a couple of picks in this game too, and one of them will be to kind of be the deciding factor in that game.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this just briefly when Minnesota was coming off of the Indianapolis Colt comeback debacle, whichever way you want to look at it. But and at that point in time, you and I talked, and I'd mentioned that I thought, Minnesota really needs to take a second, reassess where they're at, because you can't have situations like that come playoff time. You can't fall behind 33 points, 30 points, 33 points to a professional football team and typically come back like that. And it doesn't happen in the playoffs unless you're, Houston or Buffalo playing Houston, that type of thing in the playoffs. It's few and far between. I would like to think, that Minnesota's very aware of this. And so, obviously recognizing that the Giants are a playoff team, they're a better opponent than the Colts would be. So you hope they build off of that. I think home field helps. I know they're a 3-point favorite, and I think that's what they're getting the 34 is the home field. It'll be a competitive game. I agree with you, bud. I love the Giants coach. I think the team itself, I think they reflect their coach. I think they're a gritty team. They're a hardworking team. I think they play for him. And I think Daniels is a decent quarterback. I agree with you. He's not a Super Bowl quarterback. If things broke right, he could be like a Trent Dilfer, Stan Humphries type guy. Still get you there, but it's going to take a lot
Yeah,
besides
yeah,
his performance.
definitely.
But and to your other point, it really is. You start to wonder, where Minnesota's going to be at if Cousins isn't playing right, and if he's not on top of his game. I don't know how you overcome that. I don't know how you compensate for that. If he's on, I think it'll be close regardless. I agree with you. I like your score, 23-20. I think I want something to the effect of like 24-19 or something like that. But I obviously have Minnesota favored. I did have Minnesota covering, but probably just barely in this game, much like yourself. But I think the Vikings get it done. advance, and the Giants obviously look to next year to start building on what they did this year.
Yeah.
But I still think it'll be a decent game.
No,
Decent
I
game.
agree. Like I said, I think it's going to come down to kind of the end there, last second field goal type stuff. So I agree with you. Definitely, it being a decent game. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one here. What we have is another division game here. Cincinnati Bengals versus the Baltimore Ravens. And Mike, I'm gonna let you go first on this one because I know we got your boy. Your boy Joe, so I want you to
I'll tell
elaborate a
you
little
what,
bit
bud,
on
and
him.
I know, I know, we could probably get into this, 18 weeks out of 18 weeks of an NFL season. I'm not going to bash this guy completely because I like Lamar Jackson. I like the guy because I don't hear anything about him away from the game. I've seen some things he's done with charities, and I see how the fans react to him. I just don't believe that he is this franchise savior that a lot of the sports pundits and the fans believe him to be. You missed 5 games at the back end of last season. You've now missed the last 5 games of this season, and I understand. Injuries are involved, but part of that's based on the way he plays. And again, this goes back to our conversations about pocket quarterbacks and mobile quarterbacks. I know that being a pocket passer is not Lamar's game, but at some point, if you don't develop this part as part of your game, you're not going to last. And these are the type of things that begin to happen. The injuries occur and you lose time, and sometimes it's costly like it is right now. Now, I don't know if he could play right now or not. I personally believe he probably could get out there and give it a shot. I think he's shying away from that obviously because of the contract that's potentially in front of him. Um, I personally would like to see him go out there and try, if nothing else, for his teammates. But that's neither here nor there. Where they're at right now is without a real quarterback. I think with Lamar, I still think they would lose the game. I think Cincinnati is they're an 8 point. I think they're an 8.5 point favorite right now.
I believe so. I think you're
If
right.
Lamar was out there, it would obviously be less than that. But I still think Cincinnati would win the game. Be a much better ball game, but obviously in Cincinnati. And you know what I think of Joe? I just think Joe is just one of the absolute best quarterbacks going right now. As I always say, bad boy Joe. Um, and I think he lives up to that each and every week. I think he's really come into his own. I think Cincinnati is trying to push for obviously a repeat Super Bowl appearance. Don't know if they'll get there, but we'll see as we progress in our predictions tonight. But I think obviously Cincinnati is rolling at the right time. What is it, bud? They've won, was it 8 straight?
I believe so. I believe it is 8 straight, if I'm not mistaken. I
Yeah, I
believe
think it's
so.
8 straight. It's going to be 9. This is one of the lock games I told you about that I really felt was just a done deal. Since Baltimore's got a great defense,
Yeah.
and that's one of the unfortunate parts. Their defense is going to suffer because the offense isn't quite where it could be, and maybe certain players aren't stepping up. But regardless, Cincinnati is playing really well. It's at home. Great coach, great team, great fans, and I think that's going to carry them. I've got Cincinnati winning this game, and again, I don't remember the score that we talked about, Bud, but I really do. I think they'll cover the 8.5. So I'm going to go something to the effect of, I'll say, 31-16.
Yeah, and I have this game 27-10, and I'm with you on.
But I do want to get your thoughts on Lamar too, because
Well,
you always have some
the
really good
thing
insight.
with
But
that I feel about Lamar is obviously I agree that I'm not a fan of him if he's sitting out just for the contract reasons or something like that. Definitely do not agree with that at all, 100%. If he's injured, if he's hurt, he's out. Then that's what happens. You got to. I've talked about this in another podcast. Next man up. You got to be the next man up. You got to be prepared. Okay, you're playing NFL football. Okay, if you're second in command, step up, play for your team. But that's not what we've seen from this Baltimore team at all. Nobody else has stepped up on this team. Nobody's tried to be a leader on this team, in my opinion. I'm a huge Harbaugh fan, John Harbaugh, because I'm not a big Jim Harbaugh. Let's not get that strict. I'm just a John Harbaugh fan. But that's the subject for another time. But I
we'll
what
have an entire episode devoted to Jim Harbaugh and Lamar at some point.
so basically for me with him is just he's the reason that this team is where they're at. They got to the playoffs. Obviously Lamar plays a big role in this, but for me, that like I've always said is this game is a whole lot closer. I know you don't believe it, but I believe this game is a whole lot closer than everybody believes if Lamar plays. That's the key right there. Lamar Jackson has to play in this game for it to be somewhat close. And I always say because in this division, any division is tough, but this division for some weird reason when these teams play, they just like to beat the heck out of each other, and they play tough games every single time that
Oh,
they
but
play
it's
each
just
other.
like the old Ravens Steelers games.
Exactly,
That's when they had these grudge
yeah,
matches.
exactly, and it's crazy to watch these teams go at it every single year and find ways to split still. Most of the time they split with each other every time they play, regardless if a team's really bad or and the other team's really good, they find a way. Um, but like I said, Lamar and Baltimore need to figure this out. I believe Lamar Jackson only fits for this Baltimore team. I don't believe he can go somewhere else with the way he plays unless he gets adapt with the right coaching or something like that. Maybe it works out for him, but where he's at right now in Baltimore is actually, in my opinion, the best situation for him. They let him run wild like he wants to, kind of let him do his own thing, but at the same time, Harbaugh keeps him in check with that stuff, and that's why they win ball games. He understands there's a certain time, Lamar, when you got to do it, but there's a certain time where I need you in that pocket. I need you making plays with your arm, not just with your legs. But we'll let you free here and there. I think this is the best fit for him. I think Baltimore is his spot for him. So he needs to figure out what he wants to do first of all, in my opinion. If he's going to stay there, which in my opinion I believe he should, but then Baltimore needs to also get with him and figure out how to fix this. They need to come to an agreement. I don't believe they should obviously just flop over and just take whatever he's asking or whatever like that. No, not at all. But I'm saying they need to come to some kind of agreement. I think Baltimore needs to keep him. And I think for Lamar's career moving forward, he needs to stay in Baltimore. I just don't see another team right now that he could go to and make a huge difference for a different team. And I'm talking about teams that are looking for a quarterback. I'm not saying, obviously if he goes and plays with like Andy Reid or something like that, he's still going to be, he's still going to be great.
Yeah.
He goes, something like that. But I'm talking about teams that are looking for quarterbacks right now. His best option right now is to stay in Baltimore. But going back to the game a little bit, without Lamar, like I said, this team is way different. I mean, I just don't see them being able to pull anything out. I just don't see them even remotely keeping this game close, in my opinion. Like I said, I had the score 27-10 myself. Joe's on a hot streak, like you said. Cincinnati's on a hot streak. Everybody's healthy. Mixon's been running the ball well this year. He's I believe he's fully healthy now, so that's great going in the playoffs for them. Them having Chase and Higgins both healthy helps Burrow out a lot. So their main thing is just keeping him safe, keep Burrow safe. Because it's a long playoffs. Tough, it's a tough game. Like I said, division games are going to be tough. They're gonna bring pressure. Or the best I believe Baltimore's going to bring a lot of pressure in because they know that's where, Cincinnati lacks is on that line. So as long as they keep track and keep check Burrow, I think they should be good, and they should definitely
Yeah,
have
but
this
I
game.
want to get one other answer from you in regards to Lamar. If you personally were the one dealing with him in the off season, what would be your approach from your standpoint? Would you Now we both know that he turned down a significant contract in the off season last year, so he could have had his money. So from your position with Anthony talking to him, what would be your approach? What would you personally believe you might consider offering him, and what would you do with potentially franchise tagging him?
Well, what I would do first is I need to figure out where his head's at first. I mean, right off the bat. I mean, are you ready to play for Baltimore, or are you ready to move on? Because for me, I don't even want to slap a franchise tag on somebody that doesn't want to play for me. Obviously, everybody knows that the franchise tag is just a way to kind of anger players. You know,
Yeah,
for lack of a better term, piss them off. I guess I should say
yeah.
more. You see that, but before I franchise tag anybody, I want to know where's your head at. Are you prepared to play? Are you prepared to be a teammate? Are you prepared to work hard? You know, from training camp on, through everything like that. If you're not ready, then hey, maybe it's time to look at some options because I'm not gonna lie either. The other thing with this is for Baltimore that could work out is, I mean, trade wise, this could work out well for them. I mean, you're going to get something great for Lamar, depending where you're going with this. Whether it be picks or whether it be players, you're going to get something great for this. So my first step, figure out where he's at. If he's ready to,
Would
uh huh.
would the injuries going back to last season and now this season, would that, because I think you really have to, but would Anthony sit there and say, okay, look, Lamar, I get it, but let's sit down
Well,
here and look at
and
where you're at the back.
that's the next step that I'm talking. If he's ready to play, then we got to sit down, coaching, GM, everything, and sit there and say, okay, we understand you like to get out of the pocket. We understand you like to show off the legs, this and that. But if we're going to come up with a contract that's going to be multi-million, you're going to have to step away from that a little bit. We're going to need you to also be a pocket passer. We're going to need you to make plays with your arm, not only with your feet. Now, that's going to come because the game's changing. We talked about this before. The game is changing with these quarterbacks. A lot of these quarterbacks are runners. So it works. It has been working well. It's worked well for Lamar. I mean, he's rushed for over 1,000 yards as a quarterback before. We've seen it with Vic before. We watched Hurts do it this year. I believe what Hurts even beat. Or no, it wasn't Hurts. Sorry, Fields passed up Lamar Jackson's record for most yards by a quarterback in a season. I mean, look at somebody like Fields. He runs too. Hurts runs. He does run, but I mean, he didn't break that record, but it was Fields. But still, a lot of quarterbacks. Allen, he's a runner.
Yeah.
So we're changing the game, but also we have to know that if we need you to, Lamar, you're able to sit in that pocket and make passes rather than getting out there and picking up, a few yards and getting hit, getting hurt. We've seen how some of these quarterbacks, are getting hurt more. We brought up Tua, earlier. Look at Tua's situation. We don't know whether he's going to be able to play, if he's going to play again or not. If he comes back, great. I hope he does. Let's protect him where he needs to protect himself more, because if you watch him, the problem with Tua too is he doesn't know how to fall as a player. As a player, you're taught how to fall, so you're not landing directly on your head. But he doesn't know how to fall yet. So that's something if he's going to want to play, he's got to learn to do this. So these quarterbacks have to learn. That's the thing is we've talked about this over and over. You got to be willing to work and to get better. And that's what I want to see. I want to see Lamar work to get better, not with his legs, but I want to see him work better with the arm. I want him to make big plays down the field, because the other thing is the legs open up the play action and the deep ball, but if he's not working on that, it's never going to get any better.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about it, and you and I have talked about this. We both know that in defense of Lamar, the Ravens haven't exactly organizationally provided him with stellar talent on the outside. We know that. I mean, they could do a better job with the receiver position, and possibly a little bit better job at the running back position. But the bottom line for me is, again, part of being a quarterback and making that type of money, Lamar, is you got to go out and you got to perform and you got to showcase your ability to lead a football team. And one of the exceptions I take, and I can cite last weekend, where he's on the sideline, he's got his sunglasses on, he's got his hoodie on or his beanie or whatever it was. That's not the type of involvement I want to see from my quarterback when not playing. Put a headset on, hold a clipboard, show me that you're involved in the game to some capacity. And that's not showing me involvement. And I think it's a poor example for what you're showing your teammates. You've got to be invested in what's going on, even if you're not out there. So I'd like to see that from his standpoint. But hopefully they'll get it resolved. I agree with you, but if they don't, he's a perfect fit for what Baltimore does. I agree with you completely, but that's a great observation you made. You transition him to another team. If the coach isn't right or if the system isn't right, Lamar's going to struggle.
Yeah.
He really is. Great point, buddy.
Yeah, no, definitely. So now we're going to move on to the last game of the playoffs, which would be on Monday night. And you know what, Mike? I was just going to throw this out there before we did. Last time I looked, and I'm going to check again. It's right before half, 27-6. Chargers up on Jacksonville right now. So looks like Chargers taking care of business. Yeah, definitely. But next game we'll move on to, like I said, Monday night game. One of those weird games, guys. Weird games. You got Tom Brady, in his, what is this, 22nd season or whatever it is. Going up against Dak Prescott and these Dallas Cowboys. crazy thing is you feel like this game shouldn't be close. You know what I'm saying, Mike? Because Tampa Bay just has not looked good all year. You know what I mean? And the running, I mean, they can't run the ball well. Defense isn't what they used to be. They're really hurting on the offensive line right now. I know they might be getting a couple of offensive line back for the playoffs, possibly. I haven't heard yet for sure, but they just haven't looked good. Brady, still isn't playing to Brady status either. And this Dallas Cowboys team looks like they should take care of them with the offense that they have. As good as their defense looks on paper, but for whatever reason, Dax, has this interception problem, and it's not just an interception problem; it's pick sixes too. You know what I mean? So this is a huge problem that Dak has. Um, the running game is so inconsistent. You never know what's going to happen. They could run for 200 yards or they could run for 2 yards. You never know because Pollard and Zeke together, you would think that'd be a terrific 1-2 combo, but for some reason they just haven't figured out how to use that right. Um, and then, like I said about the defense, the defense hasn't been there. Last week against Washington was just crazy to see that defense get annihilated like that by a Sam Howell, out of North Carolina, coming in, and his first pass that he throws in the NFL is a touchdown to Terry McLaurin. I mean, how do you allow that being the defense you're supposed to be? You're supposed to be a top 5 defense in the league, even maybe top 3, if not, one of the best defense in there. And you're basically kind of fighting in a way to possibly get that number 1 seed if Philadelphia, falters at the end of the season, and you guys just basically lay an egg. And I can't understand what has happened to this Dallas Cowboys team.
No, no. First of all, a big shout out to Tom Brady, being the first 85-year-old to start in a playoff game. So that in itself is impressive. I got to tip my hat to him for that. That's quite the accomplishment. Another record for Tom, the oldest 85-year-old to play in a playoff game. Um, this was an interesting game for me to look at, but like we talked about with your dad the other night, I think there's so many storylines here, small storylines, but one of the biggest one is, and you just touched on, is what Cowboy team are we getting? What Cowboy team are we getting? Are we getting the one that looks so determined and look like they could potentially be heading towards home field advantage in the playoffs earlier in the season? Or are we looking at this team like you mentioned that really right now seems like they have no direction? When you look at the talent that they have and with Dak at quarterback, and again, to your point, the pick six, 7 straight games with a pick. And what was really disturbing to me was one particular sequence in the Washington game where he rolled out, being pressured, threw to his right. Literally, the only reason it's not picked is because he basically grounded the ball in front of the defender. It would have been picked. But what was stunning to me was to see them literally go right back to the same play, and this time it's read perfectly, and you get a pick six out of it. That type of play calling, that type of lack of read on Dak's part is inexcusable. You can't have those type of moments, not when you're getting ready for the playoffs, and you're going to be going on the road. Their record their 12-5 record is based on the way they're playing right now is pretty deceiving. I know going into this game, I think they are a 2.5 point favorite.
Yeah. I think we looked at
But
that
talking to you
yesterday.
and
We
your
found
dad
that out.
about talking to you and your dad about that, and based on their track history, I just don't have any faith in Dallas right now. Now, would it surprise me if they win this game? It wouldn't, but it wouldn't surprise me either if Tampa Bay wins this game. And not just because of Tom Brady, just because of Dallas's, performance history. And right now I'm struggling with it. And like we talked about, who's the one quarterback you probably don't want to go up against? We can all talk about Patrick, but Tom's still there. And you really want to be struggling like this, going into a road playoff game against Tom Brady?
I totally agree with you, and I 100% agree. We kind of talked about this yesterday or the other night with you and my dad, and talking about just where I feel still Tom Brady is. If I had to rank him in these out of all these quarterbacks in the playoffs right now, I'd still put him as a top 5, in my opinion. I believe what I had him 3 when we kind of did a list of them, and it's just because of the fact is we talked about like how the era is changing now with the quarterbacks running quarterbacks more, trying to get out of the pocket, make things happen. Tom isn't that. He's that guy that's in the pocket, stays in the pocket, and he's been protected very well as for most of majority of his career, which is why he's played as long as he has too. And I mean, not only that, I mean, I'm sure he's taking care of himself, working out, good diets, things like that too. But the thing is when you're a pocket quarterback like that, you need to have a strong IQ, and that's exactly what he has. And another thing about him is he's got 7 championships, and there's a reason he has 7 championships because he knows how to play the game, and he knows how to. It doesn't matter that he's 9-8 or 8-9, whatever Tampa Bay finished. I can't remember exactly. Going up against the 12-4 Dallas Cowboys, he's still going to give you a game, and you worry about Tom Brady all the time, no matter what, until he's fully retired and until he's got that gold jacket on and not coming back in. You worry about him. You worry about him a lot, and the same thing. And it goes back to what you said, Mike. Is just as bad as the Cowboys have played, you can definitely make some moves on this defense now. They're not what they used to be. The offense, I mean, if Dak's still throwing picks like that, I mean, pressure him, get pressure on him, and wait for that pick to come, because with the pressure that he's been seeing and the poor reads he's been making, you're gonna get some turnovers, and if one turnover could make the difference in this game.
And if Dallas for some reason gets down, let's say real quick, they get down 10-0 in this ball game, you got to believe that's going to throw doubt into the back of their minds instantly.
Yeah,
we're right back where we were last season. We're falling right back into that hole. And I'll tell you, like we talked about, I fully believe, and I know some other places, some of the other shows have talked about this, so we're not really stating anything new here. But I do believe if Dallas loses this game, McCarthy's gone.
No, I agree too, because I think he needs to be out too. In my opinion, I don't think these players believe in McCarthy, not one bit. I think that is one of the big
I don't know that
keys for them.
I'm not a big Dan Quinn fan. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I don't think he makes a good head coach. I know there's talk that he could transition into that position. I think that would be a mistake. But the bottom line here is if Dallas loses this game, Jerry Jones can say all he wants about, no, McCarthy's got his back. Don't worry about it. That's just a bunch of lip service. Yeah. We both know that if this happens, McCarthy will be let go.
Yeah.
And it's not entirely his fault. If you look at his record overall the last 2 seasons, his record is stellar. It's impressive as a whole as far as the team's wins to losses. But, unfortunately, what it comes down to is you're the head coach of this football team, so you're going to take the hit for a lot of what's going on with the team.
No, I mean, it happened.
And if you can't get past that first or second win, you're gonna take the brunt of this, and you're gonna be the fall guy.
And that's the thing, and you see this a lot, and it's happened to a lot of these coaches that have went out and taken teams to a Super Bowl, or maybe a couple of Super Bowls or something like that. They kind of step away for a little bit or something like that, and come back. They don't do so well the second time around. Jeff Fisher was that way. He went and took Tennessee all the way to the Super Bowl, and when he tried to come back again, he wasn't that same guy. When he coached the Rams, they weren't as great as they should have been. Things like that. I'm just trying to think of another example. I had Fisher and somebody else that was on my mind, but sorry. But that's just kind of what I'm going to. Is there's been kind of coaches that have done that and came back, and it doesn't always work out that way. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to work out too well for Dallas, and I don't know if we've actually said who we were going to pick to win this game, because I do have the Bucs winning. I believe you did too, correct, Mike?
Yeah, I do,
okay.
And I think I took a close score, but I can't recall what I told you and your dad, but I'm going to go, obviously, I think Tampa's going to win the game, so I think I took something, wow, I'm going to go like 23-19, something like that.
Yeah, I have the Bucs winning 27-23 myself. I feel like
I do think, as you and I talked about with your dad, of all the teams in the playoffs in this first round, the team facing the most amount of pressure are the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
And if nothing else, just for the way their season has ended on the back end of the regular season, and then obviously going back to last season and their struggles, just their struggles in whole as a franchise right here over the last 5-6 seasons. But Tampa's playing with house money. Nobody's really expecting them to win, even with Tom. So they're playing with house money. Win, hey, fantastic. Lose, well, we kind of saw it coming. Dallas finally got it together. But I think all the pressure is on Dallas. And if they do fall behind 10-0, I think that pressure really begins to seep in, and you're really going to see a lot of self-doubt in this team, and it may potentially blow up in their face.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that for sure, and I think it's going to be a pretty good game though. I was kind of wondering, looking at them, I was like, man, they make that the Monday night game, but you have to, that's got to be that last Monday night game. You know what I mean, for that one to finish off the playoffs and stuff like that. So,
Yep.
excuse me. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to. Those are obviously our top picks. So we're gonna move into the divisional round, and I'm gonna have Mike go ahead and talk about his game, the Minnesota Philadelphia game, because that's who he had moving on, as I had the Giants move on. But we're gonna start with the Minnesota Philadelphia game. Mike, go ahead and kind of give us your thoughts on this game and who you have winning.
Yeah, but obviously this will be a little bit different because we won't know point spreads and that type of thing. But I really do think that obviously this will be Minnesota going to San Francisco, and I think that presents a whole new dynamic. Once Minnesota steps outside the box and they have to, step out of the dome, comfort of their stadium, it's a whole different mindset. And I think, unfortunately, with Minnesota, when you start talking about like we did with what happened with Indianapolis, would I see potentially a blowout here? I honestly think it's a little bit difficult to say. I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Minnesota. I'm not sure, even if Kurt has a 300 plus yard passing game against the Giants, I don't know that he repeats that against San Francisco. I really don't think so. I think San Francisco has the best defense in football. All due respect to Philadelphia and their fans, but that defense is lights out. That whole team is lights out, and Purdy is lights out apparently. What is it? Your dad said he sure throws a pretty pass.
Yeah, no, he does. That's what he was saying. He does look like he throws
He
a
really
pretty
does.
pass,
But
definitely.
San Francisco is a whole different beast. That's a whole different animal. Um, and they're healthy now too, and they're showing it like we talked about. That's going to be a difficult task for Minnesota, and I just don't see them being able to do it. I thought the spread, if it plays out like, with Minnesota going to San Francisco, I could see San Francisco easily being a 4.5 point favorite, possibly five. I don't know. Um, I think they would have the potential to cover. But obviously, I think San Francisco would win the game. Could Minnesota pull the upset? Well, sure they could. Any team can pull an upset, but I think San Francisco's on a mission. I think Shanahan has learned a lot since their last Super Bowl loss. I think he's got a better idea how he likes to do things, and you obviously know what he does with quarterbacks. He can take apparently anybody and make them, an MVP candidate. But if it does play out like that, I'd say probably a 4.5 point spread for San Francisco. I think they'd cover it. And for a score, I don't think Minnesota can shut them down. I'd go 31-21 San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. Um, so you gave the pick for, well, you said San Francisco, but you were sorry, I think we might have got mixed up because you were talking about the Minnesota Philadelphia game for the divisional round.
Oh, crap. I'm sorry, but oh, well, okay. Folks, my apologies. I'm
Mike's
getting
getting a little
way
ahead
ahead
of
of
himself, guys. So now you kind of know a little bit where he's going with this, but but
Hey, sometimes you pick the wrong time to stop drinking. That's all I can talk about. All right, folks, let me correct myself here. Regardless of who goes to San Francisco, there's going to be some struggles. But let's look at this a little bit differently here. Um, you know, with Minnesota and Philadelphia, a lot of it's still going to apply. Again, Cousin on the road, potential struggles. We all know how good Philadelphia is. I think obviously Jalen's going to be coming in with 2 weeks of rest. He'll be ready to go. I think there may be some potential lingering side effects, to his shoulder, but I think he'll be fine. Again, just as talented as San Francisco is, we both know that Philadelphia is just as talented. Um, Possibly not quite as talented on the defensive side, but they're real close. Um, I just can't imagine Minnesota being able to go either, folks. if it had been San Francisco, obviously couldn't win there, not in the divisionals. I still do not see Minnesota being able to go into Philadelphia and potentially win a ball game. Kurt may have a phenomenal game, and Minnesota may play well as a team, but obviously Jalen's he's an MVP candidate. We know how good the team is. And I just think they're hitting their stride right now too. Hopefully, Jalen will be up to speed and be as effective as he needs to be for the game itself. I could still easily see Philadelphia being a 4.5, 5 point favorite in this game as well, just if it were San Francisco. Um, and I have no issues with Philadelphia being able to cover in this game. I think they will. Like I said, I think it'll be about a 4.5 point spread. For a score, I said if it were San Francisco, it'd be like 31-21, 31-20. I could easily see the same thing with Philadelphia. Philadelphia's pretty high powered too. You don't know what kind of weather you're going to get, but if it's all decent, I'll still take Philadelphia to cover. If it's a 4.5, 5 point spread, let's go 33-19.
Okay. No, definitely. I like that score for sure in that one. Unfortunately for me, I kind of went the different route on this one. I didn't have the Vikings winning this game. I did have the Giants, which the Giants would go ahead and move on to see the Eagles. So in this one for me, it's just more of I just don't see that the Giants being able to handle their business against Philadelphia. I think they lose this game. I have it 31-20. As much as I said, as much as I believe in the Giants, as much as I believe that, what they're doing is good. It's just not. It's just way too much. It's not enough for the Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry. I just feel like Philadelphia is so strong right now with what they're doing in every aspect of the game. I think that in my opinion, I think the Eagles are probably. I'm trying. I go back and forth between the two. I do. I depend. It depends on if it's 49ers or Philadelphia. I can't ever figure them out. I think they both have such great, well-rounded games, defense-wise and everything like that. And then offensive-wise, obviously looking at what Purdy did today was huge. Moving on for San Francisco, which I really enjoy seeing through out of them because, like I said, I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but Hurts just is he's on a tear right now, and he wants to be able to show that he can actually win ball games. I believe that he's going to be able to handle this game very well. I don't see that it's going to be close at all. Like I said, 31-20, but I think they kind of get a late touchdown there at the end to just kind of, just out of just garbage time type touchdown. But I believe Philadelphia is probably, them and San Francisco, just the top two teams in the NFC right now, and I don't see anybody really trying to, make that a stop for them at all. But I like to see if the Giants. That'd be great if the Giants could try to somehow pull this off, but I just don't see it happening. I just think there's just too many weapons on Philadelphia for them to be able to try to, for the Giants to be able to stop them. I just don't see it happening whatsoever.
Yeah, I just think anybody that goes into Philadelphia or San Francisco right now, but it's just going to be difficult regardless of what the potential matchup would be. I just think both teams, you can look at the AFC and what they have to offer with Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. But if you're looking at the two teams that may be the two most well-rounded two teams in all of the NFL, it's still probably going to be San Francisco and Philadelphia. And it just makes it difficult regardless of what the matchups are going to be. Ultimately, though, we're both looking at Philadelphia and San Francisco, facing a head-on collision
Yeah.
in this game.
Well, we know you did because you already gave your prediction on that. So.
Yeah, I sure did. And I promise, folks, there'll be no drinking. It's prior to the show. Yeah.
No, I mean it's
Drug
good.
use
Like I
of
said, I
stuff.
mean regardless, these two, the first matchups we obviously consider to be pretty good. Regardless, I mean we both kind of split between these two teams, being Minnesota and the Giants, and we obviously know that, you know, between the two teams, if I had to choose between the two teams, Minnesota would probably be the team that could probably give the Eagles the most fits, only because of the offense. That's in my opinion. Obviously, when you have Jefferson, you have Cook, even Hawkinson now that they got now, it makes a huge difference for if they're firing on all cylinders, that team can run up 50 on you if they want to. That's how good that offense can be. But like we talked about with Cousins, we've said it before. Primetime games, he can't get the job done sometimes, And obviously the Giants, if they get to this, I think even for them, if they can even get to the divisional round, I think that says a lot about them this year, and I think that's even great for them. I think I don't even know, before the season starts, everybody's goal before the season starts is to get, to the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't care what team you are, you're just a fresh slate. You're trying to get to the Super Bowl, but I don't think the Giants expected, even other people predictions for the season. Nobody projected them to be in the playoffs at all. So for me, just to get to the division round, I believe says a lot about them, in my opinion.
What do you think about? What do you think, real quick? If you're the Giants, if you're, let's say you're in the front office, or obviously if Anthony is the head coach of this team, what's your direction in the offseason as far as draft picks go? What would be the position you're looking at that you feel would offer them the most, impact moving forward to help carry them, past this current step? So
I think, in my opinion, I would probably go maybe help out a little bit more on the offensive line, if possible. Maybe maybe I'm trying to think. I don't know exactly. Do they have any? I don't know what their draft picks are, other than obviously whatever they finish for this year, or if they have draft picks. Obviously, I haven't looked into that. But if it's me, maybe help on the offensive line, maybe a good pass rusher, get themselves a good pass rusher in there, because they have really good defensive backs, in my opinion. I believe that the defensive backs there are really good. They make great plays. Bradbury's definitely a top cornerback in the league, in my opinion, just as well as he's played this year. I'm trying to think what else I would go after. I know I mentioned like wide receivers. I know they're still young, so I don't want to sit here and say that maybe that none of them have panned out, or haven't yet. So I don't really want to go there. Um, maybe because running back they're set. Obviously, I don't believe that right now they need to look at any other options for quarterback. Daniel Jones is the one that brought him here. Um, so I think my main areas is probably linebacker. Whether it be like an edge rusher, linebacker, or on the line, or rusher, or looking at possibly going into the offensive line probably then.
yeah, one thing I want to just I want to jump back to Seattle for just a second, but another game we talked about that right off the bat, and obviously they're done for the year. I will say this though with Seattle, obviously they have Denver's 5 pick in this coming draft, and they actually are pretty well set with a number of draft picks in this draft coming up. There may, from a position of where they may be next year, obviously if they can get Gino to resign, and we know Carroll's coming back, depending on what they do with that 5 pick, and obviously with the subsequent picks that they have, uh, this team coming off a playoff appearance, this team could absolutely be, I won't say loaded, but they might have the potential to really make some noise next season. Certainly by the 24 season. But if they do it right, and Carroll's pretty savvy, this team could be in position next year to do a little damage come playoff time. We'll see what San Francisco does, but they look like they'll be pretty solid. But Seattle next season, folks, could be that little sleeper team
I
that sneaks
I
up on a lot
agree.
of
I
people.
agree with you on Seattle. It definitely. I think they definitely found a diamond in the rough with Gino. I think he's definitely found his home. I believe he's probably where he's going to finish his career at. Obviously, unless something happens where this is just some sort of a fluke year for them, that they come out next year and just don't do well. Like I said, they got a lot to look forward to with getting Denver's pick, in which Denver got the 5th pick. Um, they, that's huge for them. That's huge. They're going to add somebody
Yep,
great onto that team, to add to them. So, and then I think they got maybe what two more picks in the first round, or at least one more other, because they get
I
their
think they
pick,
do.
and I think they got somebody
Yeah.
another one. So they have, I think, 3 picks in this first round, which is just going to make this team even better. So definitely, I mean, and they obviously Kenneth Walker, I believe is his name, the running back for them. The guy's a stud too. I mean, he's playing well. Metcalf and Lockett definitely were great wide receivers this year. I'm a big Lockett fan too. So I think this team is definitely on the up and coming, and I think definitely I agree with you that this is a team that you need to kind of watch out for next year for sure.
Yeah, I think so too, but
All right, so moving on, we both did have Tampa Bay winning, so that means Tampa Bay would play the 49ers in this one. I think we kind of know where you're going to go with this, Mike. Who's winning this game? Because you kind of told us already a little bit. Again.
yeah, I'll tell you what, but again, it doesn't really seem to matter right now. Both teams are healthy with Philadelphia and San Francisco. So unfortunately, I just don't think what's left in the NFC has much to offer as far as a challenge will be concerned. And the 49ers, I think McCaffrey showed it again today. What a huge addition he was to that football team. And he was worth whatever they gave to get him. Um, they're just steamrolling right now. And like we talked about, briefly during the game itself, I think they made their adjustments at halftime. So they knew a better way to approach Seattle coming out of the break, and obviously it showed. I just don't know, that a team like Tampa has the ability. Again, you made a good point, Bud, and I don't know. A lot of people talk about the age factor with this team. This is an older football team, and I can't quite figure out either per se why they're struggling as much as they are. I really thought that last game of the season against Atlanta, I thought if nothing else, Tom Brady would literally refuse to want to go into the postseason with a losing record. And I know you mentioned to me that they sat him pretty early in the game, and obviously that makes a difference. But regardless of that, going into San Francisco right now is no place you want to be, much like with Philadelphia, and it's just too much to compensate for, regardless of who you are, whether you're Tampa, Minnesota, whoever it would be. But in Tampa Bay, the limitations I think they're gonna be brought to the forefront, and it's gonna be very obvious that they're just overmanned. There's just too much talent on either side of the ball, both sides of it, defense and offense. I don't know what a spread would be. I'll tell you what, I could see San Francisco being a 6.5 point favorite in that game easily.
That's kind of what
And
I
I
was
think they
thinking
would cover
too.
it.
I think 6.5
Yeah,
would
I
be
think they would
somewhere
cover
around
it.
there.
Yeah. So if, let's say it was 6.5, I would think they would cover. For a score with San Francisco and Tampa Bay, uh, I could see a 33-16 type of game. Yeah, 33-16 is. I'd
I
go
can
with
see
that
that.
score, but
Yeah,
33-16.
and I'm definitely on that same road you are. I got the Niners winning this one. I have it at 28-10. Kind of like you
Good
mentioned.
score, but good score,
Yeah,
good
kind
score.
of like you mentioned with this is, um, I was kind of wondering what kind of a team Tampa Bay is, and are they really that bad? Is it, what's really going on there? Trying to look at. I know they're down a couple of offensive linemen for sure. I know that. That's kind of key to the success that they've been having is the O line to give Brady the protection he needs to make plays. So that's one big thing on them. But like bringing up that Atlanta game, like I said, I think Brady was gone after the first quarter. I believe. I think they only let him play the first quarter. He was basically just trying to get his, beat his own completion record for a season is what it was, and then they took him out after that. But when you watch that game and he had them leading, they were playing real well. Once he came out, I mean that team fell apart. I mean that's when you know that a team is bad. I mean Brady just came out and they just laid an egg to Atlanta after that. So
Yeah.
that there's a lot of problems in Tampa Bay right now. Like I said, the defense isn't as strong as it used to be. They can't run the ball at all. Brady's the leader of that team. He has to literally put that team on his back for them to beat a team like San Francisco, and I just don't see it happening though. I mean, Brady's led a lot of great teams, and he's the greatest quarterback ever, as a lot of people would say, for a reason. It's because he has done his job here. But I think this one's just a little bit too late in his career. It's just a little bit too hard too. I mean, with what you're kind of trying to overcome and how great that defense is, I just don't see it happening at
Hey, but
all.
in your opinion, is Tom there next year?
Man, that's tough. To be honest with you, I think, in my opinion, it depends on what happens for this season. In my opinion, I think if they win one against Dallas and then come back in and play San Fran and get beat pretty bad, like we're kind of saying, like, double digit losses and stuff. I think he finally just kind of hangs it up. I don't know if he's gonna kind of move on anywhere. If he, I know he probably wants to, but it, when you just get beat down pretty bad in the playoffs like that, you start to kind of just think, man, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. And I think his ship's kind of sailed as far as winning championships. I think he's gonna have to go somewhere already like really established, but we know that's not gonna happen. I know
A
the
little, lot of
Vegas.
talk
I know
about
Vegas has talked
yeah.
about possibly him moving there or something like that. He would have Adams. That would be kind of interesting to see what they could do. I think if Brady does go there, they get him a little bit help still on that offensive line too. The defense though they need work on defense. The Raiders, man, they need work bad. I mean, Crosby's great on there and stuff like that. I know they got him, but man, they need work. They need to work on defense.
Their secondary is
Bad, yeah.
atrocious. I mean, they
So,
are awful.
so the thing is that's another thing to me for Brady is you have the Vegas has to realize who they're talking to. You're not talking about you're not talking to 23 or 24-year-old Brady who's still got years ahead of him. You're talking to 45-year-old Brady who he's not just going to come back to your team if it's not ready to win. I think that's the key thing for Tom is if he's going to come back to a team, they have to be ready to win. It's not going to be a team that we got to kind of work a little bit or we're rebuilding. He's not going to no rebuild. There's no way that Tom Brady's going to rebuild at 45 years old. So I think, in my opinion, his best bet is either stick with Tampa Bay one more year and see, depending on how much they push and how far they go. Obviously, if they get maybe to the NFC Championship game or something like that, he might come back and say, "Hey, we're injured. We'll come back stronger. We're gonna get better on the O line. We're gonna run the ball more. That'll get us over the hump." Then maybe yes, but I mean, if they come out into San Francisco and just get beat up, I don't think he comes back. I think he's actually this might be it that we see of him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised either way. I guess if he did come back or if he did step down,
Yeah,
you never know with Tom. Much like Aaron, you just never know until you know.
definitely.
But it'll be interesting to see what they do.
So moving on now to Mike. This is actually your game because you had the Chargers moving on, which looks like that's probably what's going to happen. Last we had seen it was 27-6 going into halftime, but you have the Chargers playing Kansas City. So go ahead and talk to us about that one.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I actually thought the Jacksonville game would be a little bit closer than this. Um, I was not expecting Los Angeles to play quite this well. And granted, it's against the Jacksonville team; it's still learning, so it may not, possibly wouldn't have been entirely surprising. Um, Again, tough place to go into. Arrowhead is a nightmare for most teams. It's going to be Kansas City's first game coming off the end of the season, so they're going to have that 2 week break, and they'll be resting, they'll be ready to go. And I just don't know if anybody wants to to play against an Andy Reid coach football team, when he's got 2 weeks to prepare for you. And this is going to be tough. I just think the Chargers, if they do obviously manage to hold on and beat Jacksonville, it's still a learning experience. I know your dad is really high on the Chargers. As a matter of fact, I think, if without misquoting him, I think he had the Chargers going to the Super Bowl at one point. Um, I obviously don't see that. I just think right now it's a learning curve for them. It's a step, in the right direction. But I think this is where it's going to, this is the end of the road. It's not, it's a divisional game, as we both know. Those are tough. But boy, it's Mahomes and it's Kelsey, and it's just this collection of pieces that Patrick has to work with now. And I just think the offense is so much more diversified now. He's just got, whereas he had only two options really, I thought last year, he's got multiple options now. A little bit of a running game. It's still hit and miss sometimes, but it should be more than enough to take care of Los Angeles. I just can't see it. Herbert may have a good game, and the Chargers may play fairly well, but if this game I don't know. Maybe it's a 5 point spread. I could see that. I could still see Kansas City covering a spread, that type of spread. If you're looking for a score, uh, I can see, 34, 35 points for Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of. I'm just gonna kind of go into mine because I had Jacksonville going, but I agree with you. This is kind of the end point too, for me also with this. I had Kansas City actually winning this game like 42-10. Um, so and that's because it's just one of those where, yes, Jacksonville I thought was kind of on that high end. I think I felt like they would kind of roll in, kind of get the Chargers, beat them, but they're going to come into Kansas City, and we know that just Kansas City is just a different ball club, especially in the playoffs, man.
Yep.
Mahomes is just still doing the work that he's been doing. I mean, even though he lost Tyreek, everybody's sitting there saying, "Oh, he's gonna lose a step because you know, he doesn't have Tyreek." No, the guy still threw for over 5,000 yards. He's just so good at what he does, and it's amazing to watch him now. Unfortunately, I don't. Obviously Jacksonville doesn't look like they move on unless they kind of pull off an upset or something. But I just don't see, even if they do move on, that they even stand a chance against this Kansas City team, because they just what they do is just amazing. They're a great team in my opinion, a great team, and they will be great. As the years keep coming.
Yeah, and I think I know your score was pretty one-sided. Obviously, I think I had Kansas City at 35. I guess I could see the Chargers possibly managing something like 17 points, something along those lines. Again, nothing very close. It's just a learning curve for the Chargers. But we'll see. Things can happen, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't imagine a team going in there and beating Kansas City.
I,
I
I
just
can't
can't.
either, and it'd be, I guess if anything, like I said, if I had to choose between the two that I feel like they could maybe do it, obviously the Chargers, because they've seen Kansas City, multiple times. They're being in the same division. That is a team possibly you put in enough work and watch enough tape. Maybe you find a way to catch them. But I still don't think either one of these teams are able to go in there and beat them. Either way. But actually, we're going to move on to this next one. Big game, Mike. Big game. Cincinnati Buffalo. Your boy Joe against my boy Josh. That we both have this set up as the next divisional game. And man, after everything that happened on the last time that these two met, for them to meet again in the divisional round, well, how exciting would this be to see this game happen? How exciting would this be to watch this come about? And what did you have picked for this as moving forward?
Well, in talking with you and your dad the other night, I think I mentioned that if everything plays out like it potentially can, you've got the makings of some really good championship games that could obviously segue into a very, very good Super Bowl, we hope. Um, in some ways, it's the game, if it plays out like that, it's the game that was never finished. We didn't get to see obviously the Cincinnati Buffalo game play out for obvious reasons and understandable reasons. Um, this game, however, would be in Buffalo, and I think that's a huge difference. We don't know what the weather will be like at that time of the year, um, and I can't even imagine what a spread would be. I would assume Buffalo would probably be maybe a 2.5 point favorite. Cincinnati's a good football team, and again, with Joe out there playing as well as he does, I just can't imagine a blowout either way. I just don't see it happening like that. Uh, I think it's going to be a really good football game, but I just think Buffalo is such a good football team, and they're finally finding their stride. I think during the middle part of the season, with a little bit of they had some injuries. Obviously, Allen one of them. But they're finally starting to round into shape. There's a point and there's a purpose to what they're trying to accomplish, and that's a huge factor. And I think playing the game in Buffalo with those fans and everything that they've gone through and waiting for this moment just to play Cincinnati and settle the score or see how it's actually going to play out is going to be a lot of fun to see. I do believe, like I said, Buffalo would probably be at least a 2.5 point favorite, possibly three for the home field. I do think they will win this ball game. Again, a close score. I can't again remember what the score was I gave you and your dad the other night. I could see if the weather's right, a fairly high scoring game. I'd probably go something like 31-27 Buffalo.
Yeah, and I'm kind of right there with you. I had this game 30-28 is what I have Buffalo winning. And just basically piggybacking off what you said. I mean, this game's going to be, I think it's going to be great. You're talking about Joe Burrow against Josh Allen, and both these teams pretty much full strength on that offensive side. um, Knox has been playing well. He's been scoring a lot recently for them. Obviously, we know about how great Gabe Davis was last year come playoff time for them. And obviously Diggs being, that's their all pro right there. It's the running game for Buffalo has gotten better, I think, in my opinion, which is the main reason why that they are the better team. That's what Buffalo's always been missing. Yes, they've had Allen who runs, but like we brought up before, talking about Lamar and stuff like that, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. But we know that Josh can throw the ball too.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to play in a game like this. You need to play mistake free. I know it's hard to do that mistake free, but when I mean mistake free, I mean not those key turnovers that you make. Obviously you're gonna miss passes here and there. Sometimes it happen. You're not get a perfect completion percentage all the time. But I'm talking about don't make that terrible throw. Late in the game that could cost you. You know what I mean? Be smart about it. If it's not there, throw it away. You know, you don't necessarily have to be that guy that scores on first down or something like that. If something's not there, get out of the pocket, throw it away, move on to second down. Keep moving that ball. But like I said, the big thing for me is just the run game. I think the run game for them is really what's made them a better ball club, in my opinion. I think the defense is still really, really solid. They play great. Even after losing Vaughn started great the season, and then he got the injury with the ACL. But even after losing him, they still been solid. I know they have games, but then again, it's funny because you look at all these teams that are in the playoffs. Every single team here has a bad loss somewhere. Everybody has had a bad loss. Kansas City's lost to. Kansas City went and lost to Indy. 49ers lost to Denver. Minnesota's gotten beat down too. Buffalo's lost to they lost to Miami earlier in the season. They still play this year. I know they made the playoffs, but we know just after saying that we don't think Miami really stands a chance against them. So all these teams in the playoffs have had bad losses. So it's not like you can sit there and say, oh well, they didn't look good against them. Yeah, of course not. I mean, everybody's had terrible losses, and that's what's going to happen, especially when you extend the season, by another game. You have to play one more week, so you're going to have some rough games. You're going to have some bad losses, things like that here and there. It's just what you do when it comes down to the playoff time, when it comes down to the crucial time is the big key right there. And in my opinion, I think Buffalo will just kind of overcome that. I think they're going to just be the better ball club, but it's going to come down to the wire. That game's going to be back and forth. Both teams are going to play hard, but in the end, Buffalo will find a way to come out on top, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think real quick, but we touched on this a few episodes back. It may have been in our first episode. I talked about Joe, and it was an interesting stat and it was a true stat that if he's sacked no more than 5 times in a game, they typically win the ball game, and that's just a ridiculous stat to have to put out there. Then that speaks volumes about your line. That even when you're giving up 5 sacks, it's still apparently it's a positive, and that's just almost unbelievable. That that's the example that you have to go by. That as long as you don't give up 5 sacks, you're in pretty good shape. So I think that's going to be a key part of what goes on in this game is just how well, obviously, the offensive line protects against Buffalo's defensive front. If they do, to that point, Cincinnati, if they do win the game, am I surprised by that? Not one bit. I still think the game can go either way, but a lot of motivation for Buffalo playing at home. Everything that's gone on, I just feel like this is at least their year to get to the Super Bowl, and we'll just see what they do with it when they get there. But it sounds like we're both on the same page with Buffalo.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. So Looks like even though a couple of different, a couple of differences there between us. Obviously, you having the Chargers go on, I having Jacksonville, you having Minnesota, and me having the Giants. But all in all, when it comes down to the end with the championship games, where you and I are kind of both just right there with it. And the first one we're going to start off with is that Philadelphia Eagles game. Um, and this game, man, if it does come down to these two, I'll tell you what, we're in for a hell of a game. I mean, you're talking about two great defenses going up against each other. You're talking about two young quarterbacks, up and coming quarterbacks. It looks like I said, I wasn't too sure on Purdy, but after seeing what he's done today, if he can keep that moving forward, which he's going to need to, because when he comes to play a team like Philadelphia, you need to be firing on all cylinders, in my opinion, because this team's pretty damn good.
Can you imagine Bud being Kyle Shanahan, and this is your predicament? Well, I've got Purdy, but I've got Jimmy. Do I want to hold on to Trey? I don't
Here's
know.
the thing for me too, and I agree. It is tough. But the thing is for me is I'm still not sold on Trey myself. I mean, he got hurt that first game, right? Was it game one or was it game
Very
two?
first game.
Yeah,
Very first
so
game.
we still don't even know about him. It's still we don't know how good Trey Lance could be. I mean, if he never gets hurt, are the 49ers where they're at? We don't know. We don't know
That's
that.
a good point.
Or are they better? There's no telling. They could have just been a 500 ball club. They could be less than 500. They could be the number one seed with Trey Lance. We don't know that yet. You know what I mean? Jimmy came in. He did what he was supposed to do. And then unfortunately he got hurt. But man, what, like you said, what a great way to fall back on. You start with Trey Lance. He gets injured, unfortunately. So you got Jimmy, which you're like, man, that's okay. It's fine. Sucks. He got hurt, whatever. But we got Jimmy. Jimmy's back in. We're good to go. Then he gets hurt, and you're like, man, we got to go to, you know, we got to go to Brock
Mr.
Purdy.
Development.
Yeah, we're going to Brock Purdy. Like, let's see what he can do. And the guy has been able to. He's lived up to it. He's lived up to it.
But three passing touchdowns a day, one
Yeah,
rushing touchdown.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So this is what I wanted to see from him, and I'm glad I've seen this, because now this makes me feel better about my choice, because this is how I feel, and I have the 49ers winning this game 23-16. I think the defense is just going to be a little bit too much for Philadelphia, and obviously we made these picks before the
Sure.
games and stuff. So I was a little worried to say if Purdy can be able to lead them to this, but I'm sorry, but after seeing what he did today, I have a lot more confidence in this pick, being that they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's not anything to say about Philadelphia being a bad team or something like that. I just think that day San Francisco is just going to be the better team. You can see two great teams play, and they'll leave it all out there, and just sometimes one team just is a little bit better than the other, and that's what's going to happen in that game. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be anything where it comes down to, man, Philadelphia just made a whole bunch of mistakes, and it's just turnovers left and right, and that's what lost the game. No, I think it's going to be a great game, and San Francisco's just going to be the better team that game, and we're going to see a great NFC Championship game if this is the way it turns out, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about Purdy too, Bud, is in watching this today now, and I don't know if you recall the play itself, but it was relative. I guess it was relatively early in the game. But anyway, he had been forced out to his left. Essentially, he did a spin move on the defender, came back to his right, and threw out, and then he caught the guy in the flat, and the guy took it in for a touchdown. And at that point, the game that was, and I can't remember the score at that time, but it was pretty much putting the game away, or it was very close to it. But my point to that particular play was that it really indicated to me Purdy's awareness, uh, first of the field, secondly of his ability to not panic. When forced out of the pocket. You and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
talked
yeah,
about this with
yeah,
your
yeah.
dad. There was going to come a point where he's going to have to answer the bell per se. And by that I mean there's going to come a time where the responsibility is going to literally fall on Purdy to make some plays, and I mean potentially to win ball games. And I thought he began to show that today with plays like that. Um, I tell you what, and I also think, even if Jimmy's ready to go, you can't transition back to him. I don't think that's the right move. Purdy's not struggling. Even if he struggles in the divisional, I wouldn't be quick to panic, and just say, hey, I'm going to pull the plug and we're just going to put Jimmy back in there. Jimmy hasn't played in quite some time, folks. So you might want to stick with Purdy and just see how he does. And I think that's who you have to ride this out with. Even if they get to the Super Bowl, don't make a move and say, well, we got Jimmy back. We got 2 weeks to get him ready, so we're going to throw him out there and let him play in the Super Bowl. That's not fair to this kid. He's earned the right to play in the Super Bowl. Um, I think top to bottom, both teams are great. Uh, but when you look at San Francisco's defense, I tell you what, bud, you and I talked about this too. That's a lights out defense. That is lights out. I think it took them a little bit, in the Seattle game today just to figure a couple of things out. But Shanahan made the adjustments at halftime, and they came back out and they showed who they really are. I think it's going to be a great game. I could see Philadelphia be favored by 2.5, maybe 3 for the home, but I doubt it. But much like yourself, bud, San Francisco top to bottom, and particularly with Christian on the offensive side of the ball, and what they have at receiver with Debo and what they have at tight end. It's a lot to ask a team to stop these guys. And as good as Philadelphia is, I just don't quite think they're up to that task. But I think it's going to be a great game. But I could see a fairly high scoring game here too. Uh, like a, I don't want to get crazy here. Probably something along the lines of like a 33 to 27, 33,
Yeah,
28, something like that.
yeah,
But I think they cover.
yeah. No, like I said, and like I said, in my opinion, I think this is just gonna be a well fought game between each two. I think they're both about. I think they're both even offensive wise. I mean, I know you brought up certain players, but I mean, you could easily cancel out Debo with AJ Brown. You could easily cancel out Ayuk with Devontae Smith on the other side. You could cancel out Kittle with Goddard. Obviously, I think they obviously have a better run game there. But Miles Sanders has actually put up a tremendous year this year. I think he rushed for almost 11 to 1,200 yards this year. So the running game's gotten better for them. But all in all, I think Christian moving over there was a huge move for them. Um, so I like that. I like that a little bit more than Miles Sanders. But then you kind of teeter back and forth between his Hurts or Purdy better. After today, I still have to go with Hurts because that's one game that I'm talking about that he's really shined. Like I said, he's managed the other games, which is fine. It's great. He's did his job. He got him to where they need to be. He's doing what he's supposed to do 100%. I
Yep.
agree. But really, when it comes down to it, is just that, in my opinion, I think Jalen Hurts is still just a little bit better than Purdy, in my opinion. Um, not and that's not saying a whole lot as far as what I've seen today from Purdy because if he's putting up these numbers throughout the rest of the playoffs, then I don't know. I might have to say Purdy's a little bit better than Jalen Hurts, and I haven't been a huge Jalen Hurts fan, but I love what he's doing this year. I think the work he's put in to get this team better um, has been exceptional. It's great to watch him put in the work he has and get this team to the number one spot. I never ever thought that this team at all was going to be a number one seed. I know they made the playoffs last year. I know they had a chance possibly to get there to the playoffs again. Obviously, I've kind of figured Dallas would just kind of lead the way again. It's always been the NFC least, is what they used to call it, just because they've never been great, other than Dallas just kind of, winning that division by default type stuff. So, like I said, I think it's going to be a really great game. I think both teams kind of cancel each other out. I think San Francisco's defense is just a little bit better, in my opinion. But Philadelphia is still stellar. I think these are the top. Yeah, I think maybe these are probably the top two defenses in the whole playoffs, and then kind of Buffalo kind of falls around there too. Um, but I look forward to just seeing a really great game. I like I said, I don't see this game being something where you're going to see a bunch of just mistakes on one side, and that be the huge turning point of the game. I think we're just going to see a really great game.
Yeah, real quick, bud, I got a question for you. But in touching just momentarily on one thing you said, And I like your point too. I still think Purdy's he's in a position of still having to prove some things. I mean, this was an A+ on a grading scale what we saw
Yeah,
today, but
definitely.
the steps only get more difficult, like you've
Yep.
talked about, and we both know. So let's see how he does, in the divisionals, and if it continues, obviously, by the time he gets to the NFC Championship, we might be both saying, "Man, this dude maybe he was an MVP. He just started too late to really be put into that, to that running for it." But my question to you real quick, if you're if you're in charge of the 49ers, what would you do with that quarterback situation? Would you look to offer trade to somebody for some picks? Would you potentially look to keep him? You think you could convince Jimmy to potentially, or vice versa? Purdy be the backup, Jimmy be the backup.
That's
What do you
tough.
think you'd be
Yeah,
thinking
I don't
of?
know. Like I said, because when we were kind of talking about, we still don't know what's up with Trey Lance. Sorry. So we're still kind of wondering what he's going to be. So here's the thing: if you go and trade, use trade bait for Jimmy or Brock, unless you're getting somebody where you're really filling a spot that you're weak at, which in my opinion, I don't know exactly where that is in San Francisco because I don't really see a lot of weak spots there. But that's just saying you're just going to kind of just add on to wherever you're going, whether it be offense or defense. You're just going to add to that. So if you feel that comfortable with Trey, um, I would say, in my opinion, if you really think he's going to be that good, I think you got to try to use him as the trade bait. And the reason I say him is because you still haven't really seen him play. You don't really know. Right now, you're seeing what Brock can do. Right now, you're seeing that he could be that franchise quarterback. And that's what you've been looking for because for whatever reason, San Francisco still wants to get away from Jimmy. You know how I feel about Jimmy. I think Jimmy should still be playing for San Francisco. I think he should be starting. He should be playing, when he's not injured because look what he's done. The guy, he just keeps taking him to championship games. He's taking him to the Super Bowl. I don't know what it is, but he just finds a way to win. And you can say all you want, whether it's just managing to the game or whatever like that. But he's had games just like he kind of reminds me just of Pretty. He's had games where he just manages, and he's also had games where he's thrown for 300 plus yards and a couple of touchdowns or something like that. So we've seen the same thing. So I feel like Purdy and Jimmy G are kind of the same quarterbacks. So if you feel comfortable where you think Trey can be that next guy, and you can get that trade from somebody else who believes the same thing as you, I think I would go Trey as the trade to get out of there because you've already seen what both of these guys can do, and you're going to want them. If you can get Jimmy to say, hey, I'm okay with being a backup, then that's perfect for you right there because to have Brock Purdy lead that team with Jimmy as a backup just in case, I think I'd rather take that over Trey and getting rid of a Purdy or a Garoppolo and not knowing for sure if Trey's going to pan out because if for some reason he doesn't, then you're stuck with just one quarterback at that time when you could have had two. Um, so I think what I look at, like you said, Trey's the guy that I'm looking to probably get rid of out of those three, in my opinion, because of Jimmy. Jimmy's still young. He could still be a franchise quarterback if needed. Purdy is definitely younger, so he could be that franchise quarterback. Same with Trey, but we haven't seen what Trey could do. But if you're going to try to utilize it as a trade bait because he has been injured and you haven't really seen, I think he's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Purdy's in the first part of his contract, bud, so there's room there to not have to renegotiate anything at this particular point in
Yep,
time.
exactly.
And obviously we know the situation with Jimmy and what they did with him last offseason, so we kind of know what's going on there. But I agree with you. I think right now, if somehow you could work an agreement between the two to go into training camp and let's just have you two play it out and see where we're at, offer up Trey as some type of trade bait, see what you can get for him in picks. If
Yeah,
somebody will bite, and then apply those picks obviously to what you feel is going to benefit you. Maybe you either draft a third quarterback or you bring in one in free agency just as a buffer. But I agree with you completely. But Trey's got to be the one that you offer up.
definitely. Well, we're going to move on here now to the AFC Championship game. Another great game that, if this is the way it pans out for us, we both have Kansas City and Buffalo. Um, moving forward on to that NFC Championship game, or AFC Championship game, sorry. And the winner of this would take on San Francisco for us because we both had San Francisco winning that game. For me, I think, like I told you and my dad, we talked about this, Buffalo's playing for something bigger than just the Super Bowl too. They're playing for a lot more. Everything that happened, towards the end of the season, they're playing for DeMar. They're playing for this team. They're playing for the city. They're playing for a lot here, and I think they're going to keep rolling. In my opinion, I think they are going to go ahead and get Kansas City. Obviously, this game being played would be at a neutral site. It would be, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, I think that's key for them too. Being at a neutral site, they don't have to travel into Kansas City. I don't think. But in my opinion, I think Buffalo goes ahead and moves on, and I have the score being 38-34. In my opinion.
Yeah, and we talked about that one too, bud. And it is interesting. And ultimately there wasn't a whole lot that the NFL could do with this situation that was going to appease everyone, and that's the playoff format itself with the AFC. But these were extreme circumstances, and I think for what they were dealing with, I thought they made the right decisions. I know Cincinnati was a little upset, but you just have to look at the bigger picture, so to speak. And the bottom line is all you got to do is go out there and win. If you win, you take care of business. So it's up to you. Um, because of that, though, if the game were in Buffalo, I thought obviously this would be it could potentially be a sizable advantage for Buffalo. Vice versa, Kansas City. We obviously saw, one of the greatest games ever played last year between Buffalo and Kansas City
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
divisionals,
definitely.
and it shows you literally, uh, if there's time left, if there's seconds left on a clock, a team can win a football game. I mean, that was, that type of situation was just unbelievable. The fact that they've put this game in Atlanta, granted it's a dome, I don't know that per se that necessarily benefits either side. Obviously Buffalo plays on a surface and Kansas City plays on grass, but weather-wise it's neutral. The conditions will be ideal if they're healthy. Um, you could potentially see a lot of scoring in this game. And I think you'll see a very close ball game because it's in Atlanta. I'm not sure who would be favored. If it was in their respective stadiums, I think the home team would be favored, obviously, probably by field goal, 2.5 to a field goal. Neutral site, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd want to speculate on that. I'd go so far as to say whoever is favored, I think, would be favored by 2.5 points.
Yeah, I agree, and I think
Uh,
so too. And like I said, being in a neutral site, I think, I still think, in my opinion, I think they give Kansas City the edge on the spread on that. With them being the
yeah,
number one seed in there. And the fact is, and we had Kathy in the chat asking, saying that she's all for Kansas City here. She wants them to win. So I'm sorry, Kathy, that we're kind of going a different way here. It's nothing against Kansas City. Kansas City's a great team. They really are. And you are correct. Buffalo has not won a Super Bowl yet, Kathy. So that's something big for them too. They're playing for
it
something
is.
huge here. They're trying to go for their first Super Bowl ever. They have been there plenty of times. They just haven't, sealed the deal yet. But in my opinion, I think they're just playing for something. They're playing for something right now. They're playing for something big, more than just the Super Bowl, in my opinion. And I think this team has come a long way. They've really put in the work to get better, in my opinion. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Kansas City because Kansas City is a very, very strong team. Mahomes, we all talked about it. Mahomes, in our opinions, is still the best quarterback in the league right now. In my opinion, I know you've said you believe the same. And I just feel like sometimes Kansas City's defense just kind of falters at times, and I think that'll be something that'll happen against Buffalo this time. They won't be able to seal the deal for them, and Buffalo will come away with this win. And like I said, I think it does help that it is at a neutral site. 'Cause I think in Kansas City it would make a different story, and I think if this game was played in Kansas City, I might go a different way because there's just something about Arrowhead that's just totally different.
Yeah, and I like the progression here, Bud. I talked a little bit about, if the Chargers can advance, obviously, I assume they may have tonight to the divisionals. There's a progression there with what they're doing with Herbert and the team itself. With Buffalo, if they can advance to the AFC Championship game, obviously that's another step in the right direction. I think Patrick and Kansas City speak for themselves. I mean, the playoffs are they apparently lock in come playoff time. Cincinnati put a little bump in the road last year and took care of that. But on the whole, Kansas City gets there. Kansas City succeeds, and it's really tough to stop him. Patrick, it's I think he's already at legendary status. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
The neutral side interests me, and I think but your points were spot on, but I'm curious to see how that plays out, and I feel like it favors Kansas City slightly. But that being said, if Buffalo, I am taking Kansas City to win the game, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Buffalo were to win this ball game. That's how close I think the two teams are. I think, like we talked about, maybe a 2.5 point spread. I would take Kansas City to cover in another high scoring game. I could see like a 34-30 type outcome. Um, and that's the score I'd go with, favoring Kansas City. Obviously, you like Buffalo. And I think either way, whichever team goes to the Super Bowl, the AFC is going to have a fantastic representative. And how can you root against Buffalo? I mean, how can you root against Buffalo?
yeah,
I mean,
no,
with everything they've dealt with. I just think it's hopefully going to be a great game, both championship games, and hopefully that segues into a fantastic Super Bowl.
yeah, no, definitely, I agree. And like I said, so yeah, I mean, moving on to the Super Bowl, it's you got Kansas City and San Francisco. I'm sorry, Mike. I thought you had picked Buffalo. Yes, when we had talked about this. So my apologies on that. Um, I swear I thought you had picked it. So I actually had us both on here to talk about Buffalo and San Francisco playing for the Super Bowl. Um, but no, I mean either way, either one of those teams that get in, it's I think it's going to be tough, and it's going to be a great game going up against San Francisco. I kind of wonder though, like you said, if San Francisco finds a way to get here, in my opinion, what do we see out of Brock Purdy? Is it the light just going to be too bright for him? Is he going to be able to shine? Especially because here's the thing, I think in my opinion, going against Philadelphia will be that huge key for him because if he can, obviously, I feel like if he can get to this point here, that's it's going to be huge for him. But in my opinion, I think like it's just something about Buffalo. Buffalo is ready to just win it all. It's just they're just there. They're playing for it all. I think it's their time. I think it really is, and I have them beating San Francisco in this game 34-30. And I did say, in my opinion, I believe that Allen will come out with the MVP in this game. Because and it's just going to be back and forth too. I think it's going to be the same thing like I kind of put out there with that Eagles 49ers game. It's not even it's going to be one of those games where who kind of has the ball last will kind of win it at the end. But it's going to be two great teams playing against each other in my opinion if that's how it finishes off. And I think that's the correct two teams to play. Um, watching them all season, I believe that Buffalo deserves to be in there, and I believe San Francisco has deserved to be in there just the way that they've finished the season and how strong they played it, and the way that Purdy's leading this team. I believe they deserve to be in there also.
Yeah, and obviously, with me picking Kansas City to play San Francisco, but and that's a good point in regards to Purdy. Each step is another expectation, and with 2 weeks to prepare for a game, you got to wonder, does the pressure get to him, as they get closer to game time, or will he just continue to show that he actually is a primetime quarterback and he's ready to potentially lead a football team, whether it's San Francisco or some other team. But I believe it'll be a great game. Um, and I could see if San Francisco wins, I could see Purdy being the MVP. Obviously, I think if Kansas City were to win, I could see Patrick taking home that award. Uh, I tell you what, throughout our picks and our analysis and our thoughts, we've both fallen back on the defense that San Francisco has to offer up, and how well they play as a unit. And it's just so hard to imagine a team being able to overcome that for 4 quarters. Um, they're fast. They seem to be a little bit deep. They're they're at the very top at almost each position, and it's just a formidable. It's a task to imagine a team taking on. And I just even with Patrick and Travis and the guys, I'm not sure they're going to be up to that. But it could be fun to watch, whether it's Buffalo's offense against San Francisco's defense or Kansas City's against San Francisco's
Yeah, and I
defense.
think I think I mentioned this too when we were talking. Is just I think no matter what, if all four of those teams make it to the championship games, um, I think any way you put those teams into the Super Bowl, whether it be Eagles playing KC or Eagles playing Buffalo or vice versa, 49ers playing KC, 49ers playing, I think you see great games either way. So I think any way you put those four teams in, it's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be a really good Super Bowl if they make it. And even you can even throw Cincy. I think Cincy is another team that can definitely make the Super Bowl and make it and really excel against any of these other four teams too that they'd have to play. But no, I think it's going to be a great playoffs so far. We've seen. It looks like more than likely we've probably only seen blowouts today. I'm going to try to see. It looks like Jacksonville kind of cut into lead. It's 30-20 right now. Jacksonville has the ball with 8 minutes left in the fourth. So
Okay.
playoff magic. I don't know. Did we see some playoff magic from Trevor Lawrence? I mean, who knows? See, this is kind of what we talked about. We haven't got to see the game at least, but but does it come down to coaching again, or are they making bad plays? Is it we'll have to go back and take a look at the film, watch the game again, and see what it comes down to, or maybe especially if Jacksonville does find a way to come back and win this game, what does it come down to? What is at this point too? What does the Chargers have to do if for some reason they lose this game? Is it time for them to get rid of Staley? Is it they got to work harder somewhere else? I know they're kind of hit with injuries too. I don't think Mike Williams was playing today, but they're still playing well. I don't know if he did play or not, but that's another team that might need to look into something, especially if for some reason they lose this game.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Jacksonville's finding a way to come back. Jacksonville did this to Dallas. They made a comeback on Dallas to win in overtime. Late on in the season. So who knows? Who knows? But we'll keep an eye on that and see. But this was great. I think we did. I think this was a great thing. I loved
And real
our
quick, but I
list.
don't think I gave a prediction on that Kansas City Super Bowl. I think I didn't. I don't think I did anyway, I should say. I would go 31-26 San Francisco.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, no, definitely,
So I think that's what it is. So, but I mean,
yeah, yeah,
hopefully the games will be great. Obviously, our scores may not be exactly correct. I'm sure they won't be, and
nah,
I'm sure some
yeah.
of our predictions obviously will fall off the planet. But that's part of the fun of doing this is that you just kind of project ahead and see how you do, and just hopefully the games are good.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't see, I don't really see these games being. We talked about the Seattle 49ers. We kind of figured that game wouldn't be, as close as as it could be. And it turned out it didn't, other than the first half. But like you said, there was adjustments made for that they did, which was great because then they pulled off what was it 1 by 20 almost something like that. Same thing. It looks like maybe Jacksonville made some moves at halftime too to at least cut this lead into 10. Um, so we'll kind of keep an eye on this, but just kind of want to throw it out there, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing our lists. Hopefully yours is close to ours. If not, let us know what you guys feel. Let us know in the comments and stuff like that. Who you guys got in the Super Bowl, who you got in the championship games, what you liked about our list, what you maybe didn't like about our list, let us know how you guys feel. But I hope you guys enjoy the games. Hopefully enjoy the rest of this Jacksonville game going on now. Enjoy the games tomorrow and the one Monday. And then we should be back again Saturday with you guys to talk about these games. Hopefully we'll get into the games for sure. Talk about where we stand with our lists. Which ones kind of went south for us if they did, and then hopefully get into some other things too. I know our last two podcasts we've done. We did the basketball list, and now we've done just our playoff list. And like I said, I'm sorry we were supposed to do this yesterday. I had my daughter's cheerleading stuff to do. But this next one that we do, I'm hoping we can get into the football. Hopefully, talk a little bit of basketball too. There's been some crazy stuff going on with that. As far as who's leading in the league right now. Hopefully, getting a little bit of college basketball too, because we've been watching a lot of teams, a lot of ranked teams go down. I believe Arizona lost today to Oregon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe they lost
Wow.
there. So, yeah, Iowa State almost beat Kansas today. It was 62-60 that Kansas beat them by, and Iowa State's really on the up and coming too. So hopefully we get it. We're gonna
Well,
try to.
TCU, I think, also beat Kansas State, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, so definitely, like I said, we're gonna try to get into some
I think
college
that was a
too,
16-point loss.
with everybody. So, hopefully, kind of get back into a little bit more of a groove with talking more sports these next couple of podcasts that we have coming up. But obviously, like Mike said when we first started this podcast, it's a great time for sports right now. We just finished with the national championship game, which was just insane to see. I didn't see that coming. I did think Georgia would win. Um, I figured they'd win by 17, 20 points, but I didn't expect a 65-7 win like they did. I mean they dominated TCU. I myself have not seen a national championship that dominated in my life before, and that was just crazy. And Georgia is literally showing that they're slowly trying to pull away from the rest of the SEC right now. Just with the way that they're playing.
Well, and actually, but I think we can share this news now. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this yet, but we might be breaking this news. Is that did come to find out that Georgia, in agreement with the NFL, they will be replacing the Houston Texans in the AFC South because they offer a more competitive product. And so they're going to be replacing Houston. Houston will obviously be, relocated to the SEC, and they will probably stink there as well. But that's the breaking news. So hopefully we got the jump on everybody.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I mean, it's sound. When you think about it, it sounds funny and stuff. But man, that Georgia team is just these past few years have just been insane. Um,
You know that they're already projected, Bud, to go undefeated next year. Their
yeah, no,
schedule,
I
it's
see. That's
crazy.
why I said it there. The SEC is far and above the best division in college football, in my opinion. Um, and it shows. It shows. It definitely shows by
Yeah.
national championship winners. But saying all that, Georgia's slowly just pulling away from the rest of the pack in the ACC. Also, though, it feels like Georgia's up here, and then you just kind of falter with the Bama, LSU's, and stuff like that after, and they're kind of just running in their own league right now.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's crazy to see. But Kirby Smart, you know, I tip my hat to him. He's just been an amazing coach for them. Amazing. I mean, I think right. I mean, if I had to pick right now, I love Nick Saban. That's my guy. But right now, if I had to choose a coach, the best coach in college football right now, I would have to go Kirby Smart. He has to be the best coach in the
Can
NFL
you
in the
imagine,
college
Bud,
football right now.
having a conference? Can you imagine having a conference that has Kirby Smart and Nick Saban
I
in the
know
same
it's
conference?
crazy.
That's almost unbelievable.
It's crazy. It is.
It's crazy.
But yeah, so
You know,
definitely, guys, we're gonna try to get back into doing a lot more sports. Like I said, with the playoffs coming up, this was something we definitely wanted to get into with everybody. I know everybody loves getting into these kind of lists, things like that. So this is something we wanted to definitely get out here. So like I said, next week, same time, we're gonna be on. We'll go over playoff games, go over some more basketball, college and pro, hopefully, and then if we got other times, whatever we got out there, if you guys are watching, maybe send us some questions or send us some topics, things like that. Same thing, do that in the comments too. When you're watching this, give us some other, things that we can sit there and talk about. We're open to anything, guys, for sure. It doesn't necessarily have to be major sports. We'll try to dive into whatever you guys are interested in hearing from us. So definitely. Reach out to us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. Definitely. Anything else from you, Mike?
Yeah, just real quick, but and just like Anthony mentioned, folks, as always, our sincere appreciation for you taking the time to tune in and listen, and hopefully enjoy what we have to offer. Certainly, as Anthony mentioned, any suggestions, comments, criticisms, we greatly appreciate your input because it helps us to hopefully develop a better product as we go forward. But it's something that we both love to do, is just talk about sports, and again, we're not all knowing, but we are fans of the game and of sports in general, and it's fun to get on here every week and just share a little bit of time with you, and obviously the two of us get a chance to spend some time talking to each other about things. But as always, thank you so much. And just as Anthony said, hit that subscribe button and the like button, and we'll just keep trying to move forward with a better product for you each and every week. And just as always, thank you folks again so very much.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys again. Have a wonderful week and stay safe out there. Have a great night, everybody.